I just love helicopters. And while I can't buy a big one, how about the world's smallest helicopter in the world? Surely I can fit one of those in the garage. That's where the idea for this video came from. Here are the smallest helicopters in the world. Let's start with one of the smallest and lightest manned helicopters in the world, the Microcopter SCH-2A. This little thing is just 4.2 meters long and stands only 2.1 meters high. And get this, you don't even need a license to own or fly it in the US. But flying with nothing but a strap keeping me from falling? Yeah, I think I'll pass on that one. This copter falls into the ultralight category, just like all the others we're going to talk about. But even in that category, it's on the extreme end. It weighs only about 120 kilograms when empty and can hit speeds over 60 miles per hour. Honestly, I didn't think anyone could make a helicopter smaller than this. Then Japan's Gen Corporation came along and proved me wrong. Their Gen H4 is even smaller, even lighter, and can go twice the max speed of the previous mini helicopter. The Japanese company behind this little machine wasn't trying to make something fancy. They just wanted something efficient for construction work. So the design is pretty bare bones, an open frame with a mounted seat. And when empty, this thing weighs only about 70 kilograms. Watching this guy maneuver it in the air, it feels like something straight out of a superhero movie. If you think that's high-tech, just wait till you see what we have for you in store at the end of this video. Spoilers, it will blow your mind. Nobody's beaten Gen Corporation at making the smallest manned helicopter yet, but that doesn't mean there aren't other impressive ultralight choppers out there. Take the HC-01, for example, the first helicopter developed by a Hungarian company called Hungarocopter. Looking at it, you can tell this thing wasn't built with luxury in mind, but don't let that fool you into thinking it's cheap. The kit alone started at over $80,000, and on top of that, you would need around 300 hours to put it together. But hey, if the end result means you get to take off straight from your driveway, I'd say that's worth it, right? And not just that, this thing can hit a max speed of 280 miles per hour and cruise at around 100 miles per hour. Look at this guy showing off by making the helicopter turn without using his hand. Cool trick, but I'm pretty sure that wasn't part of the original design. It's just that ultralight choppers can sometimes turn on their own with the right balance. Still, if you ever get the chance to fly one of these, don't try that unless you really know what you're doing. So far, we have looked at helicopters that actually made it to market, but not all of them managed to reach that level of success. One that didn't, the A/W95. Back in the 2000s, this American helicopter made some noise while still in development, and you can see why. I mean, with just a simple maneuvering handle in front, you plug in some headphones to avoid the rotor's noise, and boom, it probably feels like you're just floating through the air on your own. This aircraft was actually a modern take on the Adams-Wilson XH-1 hobbycopter, a single-seat, home-built helicopter from the 1950s. But for undisclosed reasons, the company's website shut down in 2012. And now, these aren't available for purchase anymore. But the story doesn't end there. The plans for the latest version are still floating around, and some hardcore flying enthusiasts have taken it upon themselves to build their own helicopters at home. First up, we've got YouTuber Mitch G, who has a home-built helicopter just chilling in his garage like it's any other daily use vehicle. If I just told you about a guy pushing a helicopter while riding a unicycle without the visuals, you probably wouldn't believe me. Once he gets to the open space, he starts testing it out. Low height turns, checking stability. Everything looks solid, but this isn't exactly what he built it for. After some practice, he's ready to do what he actually planned, taking off straight from the road. And the crazy thing is that this guy has so much confidence in his creation that he's flying with nothing but a helmet. No knee pads, no elbow guards, just shorts and a half-sleeve shirt. I guess this is what happens when genius and fearlessness are wired into the same person. Then we've got a Japanese guy who built a coaxial helicopter at home. An even more impressive feat. Why? Basically, coaxial means the helicopter has two sets of rotors spinning in opposite directions instead of a tail rotor for stability and maneuverability. The SCH-2A and Gen H-4 were coaxial too, and generally, this setup is trickier to design than traditional helicopters with the tail rotor. Speaking of which, another Japanese builder went with the more traditional tail rotor design but took a different approach. He actually built a full cockpit for safety. But is it just me, or does the open-frame cockpit look way cooler? Like this Ukrainian guy's helicopter, it's got that exposed, bare-bones look. And he even did his test flights in his backyard. Imagine being his neighbor. You're just trying to tan, and suddenly there is a dude hovering over your fence. Honestly, watching these guys fly their self-built helicopters makes me want to build one myself. Now we've got another aircraft that looks a lot like the first two models we talked about, except it's not coaxial. In easy words, take the Gen H-4, add a small tail with a rotor at the end, and you've got the Minamax. This ultralight helicopter was developed by a French company in the early 2000s, mainly for police surveillance and recreational flying. Size-wise, it's pretty close to the Gen H-4, but it's heavier, about 115 kilograms when empty. It can also hit a max horizontal speed of around 75 miles per hour. Watching these tiny flying machines is fascinating. But if you've been waiting to see a mini helicopter that actually looks like a full-size chopper, just shrunken down, then get ready. Because up next, we've got Revolution Helicopter Mini 500. If you are an aircraft enthusiast, you might already know about this one. This single-seater helicopter was introduced by an American company back in the 1990s. They don't sell it anymore, but it's still well known for its size, and you can still find some used models around. This chopper is a little over 4 meters long, about 2 meters high, and can climb up to 10,000 feet. And I have got to say, the cockpit cabin looks really cool. Even though the design is old, that big glass canopy gives it this sick sci-fi vibe. What made this chopper even more special was that it was relatively affordable and came as a kit people could assemble themselves. Naturally, it got a lot of attention from hobbyists, but hey, if you're looking for a brand new helicopter of this size that's also affordable, the Mini 500 might be off the market. But there is something even better. These helicopters were originally built by Mosquito Aviation in the early 2000s, but after the company shut down in 2015, a Canadian company called Composite FX took over production in 2019. They're specifically designed for hobbyists and leisure flying. But that doesn't mean they are just toys. These little machines can fly. The Mosquito XE has a cruise speed of 85 miles per hour and can climb up to 14,000 feet at a rate of 1,200 feet per minute. It's extremely lightweight. When empty, it weighs just 113 kilograms, making it easy to transport. And because of its compact size, storing it is no problem either. The kit starts at around $50,000, so if you were thinking of buying a new luxury car, you could just skip that and get the luxury of flying over traffic instead. Like this guy, giving us a POV as he takes his Mosquito for a joyride. Imagine showing up to high school in this. Coolest ride ever? Probably. Most budget-friendly? Not so much. But the next helicopter might just change that. The Fly Now E-Copter. This fully electric helicopter isn't out on the market yet, but the concept has been well received, and the company has already run a few successful test flights. And here's the really cool part: even if you don't know how to fly, you could still take solo flights, because they're working on autonomous piloting. Though, we might have to wait a few more years for that. The company hasn't revealed the price yet, but they claim it'll be 10 times cheaper than other personal air vehicles currently available. They also promise unmatched flight range and high energy efficiency. If they actually pull this off, I think spotting people flying around in mini helicopters could become totally normal in just a few years. When we talk about ultralight helicopters, not all of them are single-seaters, like the AK-13 we have here. Designed and manufactured by Aerocopter, an Ukrainian company, this two-seater, single-engine helicopter is utilized for a variety of tasks, including flying training, guided tours, light cargo transport, and more, all over the world. Its maintenance expenses are also fairly affordable when compared to other helicopters. This makes it an appealing choice for private owners and small businesses. The company sold its first 4 units to South Africa, but quickly realized they needed some modifications to handle hotter climates better. So, they spent over 2 years refining the design to withstand the harshest conditions. Now, I know you guys came for helicopters, but honestly, I find gyrocopters even more fascinating. What are those? Basically a weird mix between a plane and a helicopter. I mean, you can tell that by just looking, right? Those huge fans look similar to helicopters, but unlike choppers, they are not powered by an engine. Instead, they spin freely due to airflow, kind of like a windmill attached to a plane. That spinning gives them lift, just like helicopters, but to get those rotors spinning fast enough, you must first roll it down a runway, like with an airplane. So forget hovering or vertical takeoff like choppers, but hey, you get to make it airborne or land on far shorter runways than planes. The one you're looking at now, that's the M912, one of the smallest gyrocopters out there. And if you're wondering how it just took off without rolling forward first, well, some gyrocopters have a pre-rotator, which briefly powers the rotors to help with a quick takeoff. But once they're in the air, the engine doesn't power the rotors at all. I have got 2 more small gyroplanes to show you, but before we get to those, let's check out a few more helicopters. If you search for the smallest helicopters, one name that keeps popping up is CH-7. There are multiple variants under this name, and all of them fall into the ultralight category. They've gained quite a reputation for being fun and engaging to fly. The first model of the CH-7 was a single-seater, developed in the 1980s by the Italian company Helisport. They continued to refine the design over time with modern-day tech and even introducing a 2-seater version. The original CH-7 Angel isn't in production anymore, but newer, more advanced versions are still being made. They come with upgraded engines, a bit more space, and increased payload capacity. But here's the interesting part. Helisport didn't actually come up with the design. It was originally created by Augusto Siccarè, a self-taught engineering genius. Helisport acquired his design, and they worked together to bring these ultra-light helicopters to life. But after their initial collaboration, Siccarè decided to go his own way, and his company started making, you guessed it, more ultralight helicopters. So, let's take a look at one of his. Sikaray has made few impressive ultralight helicopters, but the one I want to talk about is the sleek Ferrari red Sikaray 8, which made its debut in 2024 AirVenture. This two-seater takes inspiration from earlier designs, but despite design and build giving off factory-assembled, flight-tested chopper vibes, it's actually a kit-built helicopter. You can put it together yourself in about 200 hours or less if you know what you're doing. One of the standout features? Cameras mounted around the craft to give the pilot a view of the tail rotor and other blind spots. That's a pretty smart innovation. It helps reduce the risk of tail rotor strikes, which are a common cause of hovering accidents. And speaking of tail rotors, let me show you an ultralight helicopter that does have a tail but no rotor. If you do, it might be time to get your eyesight checked, because this German-made chopper is actually a NOTAR, which literally means no tail rotor. This specific two-seater is called the Youngcopter Neo, possibly the smallest NOTAR helicopter, and the reason the tail looks so thick is that instead of a traditional rotor, it uses a ducted fan to control its direction. Despite being announced in 2008 and taking its first test flight in 2011, these choppers have never hit the market, and there's still no official release date. What's your take on this design? I don't know why, but something about it just feels wrong to me. Since we're talking about unusual designs, what if, instead of one big main rotor, we had multiple smaller ones, like a drone? Technically speaking, this craft, Air Scooter by Zapata, isn't really a helicopter anymore, but it's still fascinating. At first glance, you might think it's fully electric, but it's actually a hybrid. And while these demonstration flights are all remote-controlled, making it look more like a giant drone, Zapata intends for it to be piloted. They're just using remote control for development and testing. The company says these aircraft will be available for training and testing by 2026. If you haven't guessed yet, yep, this is another gyrocopter. And since we're talking about modern, unconventional choppers, it fits right in. This is the Nisus Aero, developed by a company that originally focused on motorized air gliders. But somewhere between 2022 and 2023, after over a decade of work, they finally revealed their first ever gyroplane. And they nailed the design. Can't possibly think of any other way of making a gyrocopter look so cool. But it's not just about looks. This thing has a top speed of over 120 miles per hour and even comes with different flight modes tailored to what you need. In a rush, switch it to sport mode. Up in the air to chill and enjoy the panoramic view from the cockpit. Comfort mode has you covered. Another reason to admire gyroplanes? They're way easier to pilot than most other aircraft. But before we jump back to helicopters, let's check out an old-school gyrocopter that's still considered one of the best today. The Avio main the Schweizer S-300. These helicopters aren't just popular for training, they are hustlers of the sky, used for everything from surveillance to agricultural spraying and even urban flying. Being small makes them super maneuverable, which is why they're so widely used. Their history is cooler. These helicopters have been in production since the 1950s, and even though the design ownership has changed hands twice over the years, it's still going strong. That just proves how reliable and useful they are. Sure, there have been plenty of improvements and refinements over the decades, but the basic design has stayed pretty much the same. So, if you're ever thinking about buying a helicopter, now you know which one's tried and tested. The Brantley B-2B. This little guy first took to the skies way back in the 50s, and its advanced rotor system and easy handling made it a top choice for flight schools. But here's the fun part. Its cartoonish shape earned it the nickname the Flying Ice Cream Cone. And despite looking smaller than a lot of modern ultralight aircraft, it's actually heavy. When empty, it weighs over 450 kilograms. That also means it's not the most fuel-efficient aircraft out there. Its fuel consumption is nearly double that of other two-seaters. So, not exactly an economical choice for flying today. But hey, if you're a history buff and love collecting classic aircraft, this one might just be perfect. Alright, after that little trip into aviation history, let's check out a brand new ultralight helicopter that just launched in April 2024. Meet the DTK-07. It's designed and produced by a Belgian engine manufacturer, D Motors, backed by the government. Since it's so new, there's not a ton of info available yet, but here's one cool fact. This helicopter features a brand new engine called the LF39, specifically built for the DTK-07. D Motors has been making aircraft engines for years, so if they were going to build their own helicopter, you know they had to make its engines stand out. A fresh and very interesting addition to the world of small and ultralight helicopters is the Mustang F290. What makes it special? The entire airframe, including the rotor, tail, and boom, is made of carbon fiber. That makes the aircraft not just incredibly light, but also strong, leading to better performance and improved fuel efficiency. BHR might not be the first company to use carbon fiber in helicopters, but they're definitely one of the pioneers in full carbon fiber production models. Who knows? The success of this helicopter could kickstart a new era for ultralight choppers. Maybe more manufacturers will start incorporating advanced materials like carbon fiber into their designs. So, take in the sleek, modern look of this one, because up next, we've got a helicopter that might not win any beauty contests, but it does come with some pretty cool features to make up for it. The Heliwale Afalina is a Russian coaxial helicopter. Remember what that means? No tail rotor. That design cuts down on noise, improves stability, and boosts fuel efficiency. The name Afalina actually comes from the Russian word for bottlenose dolphin, and if you look closely, the helicopter does kind of give off dolphin vibes. So far, they've only shown prototypes, and it's not available on the market yet. But when it finally does launch, the company claims it'll be the cheapest helicopter out there. The Dragonfly 333 sits among the smallest helicopters in the world, but its origin story makes it different from the rest. What's so special, you wonder? Well, it wasn't designed by aircraft engineers. Nope. Basically, two archaeologists, Angelo and Alfredo Castiglione, needed a lightweight and easy-to-fly helicopter to make traveling easy for their research, and ended up designing what is now known as Dragonfly 333 chopper. Well, they say necessity is the mother of invention. Another notable duo in the world of small helicopters, the Safari 400 and Safari 500. Both are two-seat ultralight helicopters, but unlike the Dragonfly 333, these were actually designed and developed by aircraft engineers at Safari Helicopter. The Safari 400 has that classic old-school helicopter look, the tubular steel frame and a fiberglass body. The Safari 500, on the other hand, is all about sleek modern looks, built with composite materials. Knowing both helicopters are from some company when putting them side by side feels like comparing two drawings made by the same person, one as a kid and the other as an adult. Let's wrap up our journey in the world of helicopters with one of the smallest helicopters in the world, the Denali H3 Easy Flyer. The name already gives up that this chopper is smooth and easy to handle. It should, because, originally, it was developed in Belgium for training purposes, but its affordable price, super cool design, and easy flight characteristics caught the attention of pilots and enthusiasts in various parts of the world. But, if you could own any one of the helicopters I mentioned today, which one would you pick and why? Let me know in the comments below. While you are at it, make sure to drop a like, subscribe, and press that bell icon so you don't miss the next video I upload for you. Thank you for watching.